No problem.
Besides
Hi,
that, I
Geraldine.
got the, here, Geraldine. Good morning. You're on mute.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, thank you. I was speaking to Mark. We're gonna go through the consent agenda, and then we'll have your item as first item, so we can relieve staff, you, and I don't know if Don Herwar is going to be there or whatever. But I thought we'll do it first. And now, is the request just for the 4 rural fairs, or there's a request for Gloucester Fair as well?
Yeah, we have looked at we are prepared, Eli, to give grant funding to all 5 fairs. So we have,
I
sorry,
thought Scott asked a question, said that Gloucester don't have staffing or overhead or whatever, but I guess that's not the case.
That's not the impression we got from speaking with them, Eli, but if you want to make that distinction, we can.
No,
They are moving the fair, so they have about $40,000 in costs this year to make that happen within the fairground. So they do have costs. So we were prepared to provide all 5. I hadn't heard otherwise on that. If we want to go to 4, you guys just good word.
No, we'll leave it there. So where they moving to? Do we know at this point or not?
It's within the same facility. It's just a move within that the new facility. Yeah.
Councillor Moffat, before others showed up in the meeting, I think you need a haircut. So the barber shop is open though, just so you know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Just wanted to
Put it
know.
down like this if you want.
They're open. So.
Side.
Yeah,
Like that looks better.
Oh,
Is that better?
it is.
I have to go online and make my appointments.
No, you don't. If you know the person, call them and they'll take you right away. So.
No, they said they're not doing online. They're not doing phone call appointments. It's online only.
Maybe you go to those places, high tech or something. I just go to the normal neighborhood.
I've been going to the same place since I was 11, so I don't know.
Okay. So, so what's the deal with Mr. Hobbs there, Scott? Like, what's going on there?
Well, I mean, that's all part of the same Fallowfield Bleaks issue, right? So
okay.
He had asked a while back for the report, and I believe we sent him the report. I don't know, maybe Robin might know more. See, there's the report, but then there's the Lear stuff from before with the soils numbers.
Yeah.
That's all available. Excuse me, that's all available, and I'm certain we sent him that.
Just to let you know, we are live. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So is he asked to speak, or he just sent us his?
I think the only speakers are Murray Chown, Tony Ferranda. Is Keith
Yeah, but those are all on behalf of the applicant. Is that correct?
No, it's not. No, so it's Murray. Yeah, Murray Chown is on behalf of a landowner on Dwyer Hill.
Oh, okay.
Tony Ferranda is on his own behalf. He owns land east of Munster. Mark, is Keith a speaker? Keith Hobbs?
No, it's Michael Kavanagh.
Michael Kavanagh. He's also a landowner in the east of Munster area. So that's the area that gets addressed by my motion. Well, gets looked at further by my motion.
So how about if we introduce your motion first when we get to item number 5 and let them speak on both, on your motion and on the 5?
Yeah, so I'll do some background a bit on it because this kind of goes back to 2012, and then I'll introduce the motion, and then we'll go from there. Okay,
sounds good. Thank you. Good morning, Councilor DeRose.
Good morning, Eli. You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Man, I was outside for like 20 minutes. I was just fixing a couple things. It's so freaking hot. It's so hot.
I can see your forehead shiny. I can see.
I know. I'm sorry. I just washed my head and I was just still sweating like crazy. Like my house is 20 and I'm just sweating.
Good morning, councilors.
Good morning, Robin.
I wanted to let you know that I spoke with Tony for Tony
Just
just
know
a few minutes.
we're live on YouTube.
Okay. I've had quite a number of people respond and stuff, so I think I'll
Yeah.
be ready for any questions that we got.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, Councillor. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Are you at City Hall today?
No, I'm at Ben Franklin.
Oh, terrific.
They have done quite a bit of change here with, I guess they're opening some of the building code folks up there. So
Yeah, there's quite a lineup of folks downstairs. They're controlling everybody that comes in to visit client services. That's actually seems to be working pretty well downstairs. It's not too crowded and looks good.
to have the Zoom meeting out of my house, I think will create some challenge with the internet. So that's why I come to Ben Franklin plus Caitlin here too. So if we need anything, we get.
Yeah, it's like that. I get the kids on TikTok and YouTube, and you can't do anything.
Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Chair. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
How was your visit to God's country? Did you enjoy it?
It was amazing. We really enjoyed it. The park was empty until Thursday and then filled up a little bit, but the beach was gorgeous and we enjoyed it.
Did you do some canoeing and some?
We have inflatable kayaks. So we went out and kayaked all the way over to the dam and then around the other island and then in through the lower channel into Fitzroy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
So you went to the Moors Island, right? The island in the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
So Don, you'll be interested. They're building a house with the new technology in the island with the hydraulic foundation.
Oh, okay.
It's just like they got this from Florida. So if it's going to flood, whatever, or flood season, you can increase your foundation, so your whole house will go up, and then just bring it down when So I thought, they invited us to go see the way it's done, and it's beautifully done. You wouldn't even notice other than regular foundation until you lift it up beyond the certain level, and then it's.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah.
I think we'll see more of them in the future, I would imagine.
Yeah, you would think so, eh? Yeah.
So, what time is it? This is my watch is ahead. It's only almost done.
It's 9:59.
No, because I'm still looking for the vice.
2 more minutes.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Councillor Gower and Councillor Meehan.
And they all said they're coming, right?
Yes. The vice chair is just coming in now, so.
Amazing. We all live in the rural area and we're able to get here on time. Jeez, I think people working from home, you'll be able to get places on time.
It's a long walk to my kitchen, Scott.
I've been at Ben Franklin since 8 a.m. So I'm eager. So
You have quorum, Chair.
okay. So and we didn't hear from Councillor Meehan if she's going to join us or not. Correct?
Not yet, no.
Okay, we'll let you handle that part, Mark. It is 10 o'clock, and we like to move on. So good morning, everyone, and I would like to welcome to July 8th Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee meeting, Wednesday, July 8, 2020. This is a public meeting to consider a proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as item 1 to 4 and 6 on today's agenda. For the item just mentioned, only those who make oral submission today or written submissions before the amendment are adopted may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of recipient of the application for zoning and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comment on these amendments prior to their consideration by the City Council on July 15, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Note to committee member, councillor, a reminder, if you have any motion on any of the items listed today, please send a copy to us ahead of the public delegation so that committee member and staff have an opportunity to review and necessarily clarify your motion during the discussion of the matter. Thank you, folks. And with that declaration of interest, I see none. Confirmation of minute 14, meeting of June 4th, 2020 of the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee, and minute 3, Planning Committee and Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee joint meeting, May 11, May 12, and May 19, 2020. On a minute, Carrie?
Great.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go through the consent agenda first, and we'll start with item number 1, planning on plan of subdivision plan condominium 3119 Carp Road public meeting, and we have no speaker on the item, and we have Mr. Winter on behalf of the applicant, if necessary, and also Angela Junkman Robinson Land Development also on the call. So on the item. Okay. Thank
Carried.
you. Item number 2 is a zoning bylaw amendment 4041 Moody Drive. We have no speaker on this item. And while we don't have a speaker, but we have the applicants if necessary, and that's Eric Bates from Stantec. So on item number 2.
Carried.
Okay, thank you.
Carried.
Item number 3 is a zoning bylaw amendment 2730 Goodstown Road. We have the planner with us also. There's no comment or so on item number 3, the zoning bylaw amendment.
Carried.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4 is official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, part of 7732 Snake Island Road. We have no speaker registered to speak. The planner is Jeff Ostafachuk, and we have the applicant, Mr. Merritt Chown, on behalf of the applicant. And also, I believe Mr. Chown doesn't need to speak if we can carry this item. On the item?
Carried.
Okay. Mr. Chown, you don't need to speak. Is that correct? I know Murray's somewhere, but he needs to.
Yeah, Murray's there.
Yeah. Okay, well, he didn't ask to speak, so I assume we're good. Item number 5, and that's follow field bleak soil study results. The planner is Robin Van Land, and so we have 3 registered to speak on this item. Mr. Merritt Chown, Tony Faranda, and Michael Kavanagh. And we do, I believe, have a presentation from staff on this item. Is that correct, Mark?
I didn't receive any PowerPoint or anything, no.
Councillor Moffat, do you believe we need a presentation on this item to put it in context?
No, I'm happy to provide the background that's necessary.
Okay, so we're going to hold item number 5 then, because we also have a motion from Councillor Moffat. We'll introduce it when we come back to this item. Item number 6, temporary zoning bylaw amendment, outdoor commercial patios and pop-up retail stores. As you folks know, we, as a task force on the mayor's task force, we're working with our staff from the right away for those temporarily to help the local businesses to expand their patio and on the retail stores as well. So this item, I believe, went to a planning committee and also coming to us. So there's no speakers on this item. So on the item 6, the temporary zoning bylaw amendment.
Carried.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. So we have no in-camera item. So we have other business, and that's we have a motion here by Councillor Mr. Vice Chair Gower. Councillor Gower, you have the copy of the motion.
I do.
Motion will be up in a second.
Okay, I have it on my screen as well. This is on rural fairs. I'll wait for it to come up on the screen. All right, this is to allow verbal update from staff regarding rural fairs. And the motion is that pursuant to subsections 89.3 and 83.4A of the procedure bylaw, the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee waive the rules of procedure to receive the verbal update from staff of the Rural Affairs Office regarding rural fairs at today's meeting and dispense with the requirement for staff to provide a separate written report on this verbal update.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So on the item, we agree to have this presentation.
Carried.
Okay. So with the committee indulgement, I would like to go to this item first because we have staff waiting to do. I believe Jardine Wildman will do the presentation for us, and then we'll go to the held item. Jardine, are you ready?
Yes. Thank you, members of ARAC, and Chair, through you. Just want to quickly thank Councillor Moffat really for raising the issue around the fairs. We know that they will be facing hardships this year on account of COVID-19. For those that don't know, we actually have 5 rural fairs in the city. 2 are in Councillor DeRuza's ward. So these fairs, they're really run entirely by not-for-profit agricultural societies who rely on the revenues for ongoing programming, things like rent, taxes, as well as maintenance and operating costs, facility upgrades. You know, the monies made at the fairs are reinvested into the community. For example, in youth in agriculture through 4-H programming. And we know that some of these programs will be put on hold this year as a result of COVID and those lost revenues. And that really will have an impact on rural communities across our city. So the fairs, which are really major community events, they really form part of the DNA of rural Ottawa, as our rural councillors will let you know. They provide education and entertainment. They highlight rural life and agriculture. And residents really look forward to them many months in advance of the fairs, actually. There's even a friendly competition amongst the fairs, I would say, in terms of who has the best rural fair in this city. And I'd like to say I'm torn on that. You know, they're really one of the few places where visitors and families can enjoy an authentic experience, whether it's riding the Midway or visiting exhibits, games, you know, tasting local fare. And they attract visitors from across the city and beyond. And they help raise awareness about our rural communities and their traditions. So not surprisingly, they also generate some impressive economic benefits. So one, for example, if I looked at Richmond last year, they welcomed 45,000 visitors through their gates who spent over $4 million in under 4 days. And these are just direct costs. They really don't speak to the jobs and the other associated spending that goes along with people visiting our rural communities. So really, at the end of the day, given the importance of the fairs and their ongoing contributions of our ag societies, the Rural Affairs Office will be allocating some of its annual grant funding to help on a one-time basis. And that again is to support things like maintenance, operating costs, things that would go into programming those other lost revenues. So we know that the amount is small compared to the contribution made by the ag societies, but each dollar counts in a time of need. So the Rural Affairs Office, with the support of the rural councillors, will allocate $15,000 per fair as a one-time grant fund. And this money comes out of the rural office's grant budget, which these societies are eligible to receive. And this year the grant is undersubscribed, and we think that's because of the circumstances we're under with COVID and some of those community groups not coming forward with projects this year, making this contribution all more possible. So I would just, in closing, like to thank the rural councillors for their support, and we hope to see the rural fairs return to full capacity next year.
Well, thank you very much, Geraldine. That's, I believe that's great news for all the fairs in the rural area. We all know their contribution. I guess we're going to have to, you know, whether to 4-H or GK, or also their support. Most of the fair, they have the charity of their own to help out. And I know in our community, we do also the drive-by bingo, which was canceled this year, also to contribute to the local charities in our area. That's great news. And colleague, any question? Any Councilor Giroux?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment, and I want to thank Geraldine, her work with Councilor Moffat and yourself. This is a really important initiative that we could do the minimum to help our fairs. And on behalf of Navin and Capital and Medca Fair, we thank all of you, and we thank the committee for their continual support. And I'm sure Richmond and CARP, everybody will be also happy with that. So thank you very much, all of you, for that work.
Thank you. And I see Councillor Harder has her hand up. Councillor Harder, good morning.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Geraldine, thank you very much for the conversation and the recommendation. And I'm really happy that I'm sure everybody's going to support this. With some of the work that I'm doing, it's clear that the 4-H clubs across Ontario have never been more important, but I think they're really seeing a resurgence of support from our youth. And, you know, with what's happening in Ontario right now, you know, we know the migrant workers and our dependents for all large farming in Ontario. The more we can do to support people, and in particular youth, staying engaged, getting engaged, and thinking big picture on agriculture. I know I have a person that I know quite well from the Kingston area who is a 4-H alumni herself, but she is leader of one of the 4-H groups, and she says the webinar attendance in Ontario, that they've really gone high tech and in far-reaching ways. So I think that this is absolutely, I'm glad that we have the money to do it, and we don't have to go and ask for it because these are hard times. But when we have the money in the reserves, and a lot of other things are happening this year that will, like the local fairs. But I think, you know, when you think about our fairs here, whether it was before amalgamation or since amalgamation, they're such an important part of Ottawa's culture and Ottawa's history. So I'm glad that we can support them in this way. So good for all of you that are on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harder. And any other? I didn't see any hand. So can we? Oh, Councillor Meehan, go ahead. You need to unmute. Okay.
How many fairs are eligible for the funding?
5.
5 of them. Thank you very much. That's it. Thanks.
Okay. And on this item, can we receive it? That's all what we need, Mr. Cornelius, to receive this presentation, correct?
Yes.
And staff will follow up with the fairs and the announcement. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. And thank you, Geraldine, for your good work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to the health item, and I believe item number 5 is a health item, and we have, as I mentioned before, we have 3 speakers, but we have a motion from Councillor Moffat. I would like him to read the motion first, so when the speaker can do the presentation, they can comment on Councillor Moffat's motion as well. Councillor Moffat, can you read the whole motion, please?
I will. I'll just give a bit of, I mean, the background's a little bit in the motion, but I'll give a bit more as well. So as some members of the committee might recall, that this discussion stems from the Lear update that we approved in 2016, which started in 2012. If you go back to the 1990s, there was a pocket of land around Munster that rose to the top of the Lear at that time, and that when the regional municipality of Carleton did their review, it wasn't approved at that time because of sense in the area was that that land actually wasn't prime agricultural land. It was quite marginal. You know, the farming history on roads like Mansfield will tell you that the story that it's relatively marginal lands. We come back and we do the Lear update in 2016, and these lands also rise to the top. So instead of just making a decision on it at that time and casting it aside, myself and Bruce Finley, who had worked closely on the Lear for those 4 years, and he just recently retired. All the best to Bruce. We decided that we would take a more in-depth look at these lands in the Bleaks and Fallowfield area. And it's really 2 pockets of land, both east and west of Munster. So the study that was done ended up reaffirming the agricultural capability of the land. But I'll read the motion, and I'll just explain why this motion is important right now. So whereas staff were directed by motion in November 2016 to engage a professional agrologist to undertake a soil survey of the lands proposed to be designated agricultural resource area on Schedule R6 contained in Document 1 to report ACS 2016 PIE PGM 0183, Official Plan Amendment 2016, in order to confirm or update the soils mapping for the purpose of the city's Lear. And whereas said report, or this report, Fallowfield Bleaks soil study results detailed the result of the requested soil survey. And whereas the results of the study reaffirmed the agricultural capability of much of the land on R6 and in the agricultural resource area designation. And whereas there was only one parcel of land, 2394 Dwyer Hill Road, document 5 attached, that staff are recommending should be returned to a general rural area designation. And whereas the landowners for the land south of Fallowfield Road and north of Bleaks between Conley and Munster Roads, so east of the village of Munster, as identified in document 4, continue to have questions on the Lear scoring in this area and the subsequent designation proposed. Therefore, be it resolved that Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council designate land at 2394 Dwyer Hill Road as general rural in the new official plan. And be it further resolved that Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council direct staff in planning, infrastructure, and economic development engage a third-party professional agrologist to undertake a peer review of the city's soil analysis and any additional information made available for the land south of Fallowfield Road and north of Bleaks Road between Conley and Munster Roads as identified on document 4 in order to confirm or update the soils mapping for the purpose of the city's Lear and report back to committee by Q4 of 2020. The reason why I'm asking for this third-party review is that from 2012 on, we've had multiple applications on soils in this city. And every one of them, all through the Lear and the different reports that we've had on Barnesdale lands, on the Wall Road lands, they all come down to 2 agrologists. And the one that the city uses and the one that gets used for all the appeals. And they're always at odds with each other, it seems. They never come to the same page when it comes to the Lear scoring as it pertains to certain lands. In this case, we have it right before us today. The rest of the lands were scored and are confirmed as agricultural resource area. One property owner went and got the other guy, and that's 2394 Dwyer Hill Road. And now we're going to flip that from agricultural resource area to general rural, which I don't oppose. But I'm saying that reality gives me pause through this process, and it doesn't give me the confidence that council is going to make the right decision on these lands. That third-party review, which will be neither of these 2 individuals, would give me a bit more certainty as to what I'm looking for in order to be comfortable with the scoring of these lands. It also provides a bit more time for the residents themselves who were relying on this study before they move forward. So it gives us a bit more time to come back in the 4th quarter of this year to look at this a bit more in depth, take a set of fresh eyes at it, and come back before we make a final decision on these lands.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Councillor. Just a reminder, Councillor Moffat, in 2012, Lear, right across the city, add more to the agricultural land. Is that correct? Like they added about 1,200 hectare more?
That's right. So, and there's some interesting numbers on that. So when it came to when we approved the LEAR in 2016 and we made the changes to the agricultural resource area and the general rural area, we added more to the agricultural resource area than we took away. So there was an increase in land. If you look at the actual farming numbers, there's a reduction in the total number of farms. That's just because modern farming has changed the way things are. But there's more farmland designated through the LEAR.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, staff, does any staff need to comment now, or we can go to the presenters and hear from them first, and then we can ask staff after? Robin, are you good to go now? Yeah? Okay. So we start with Mr. Murray Chown. Murray, you have 5 minutes, sir, to speak to the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'm wondering if staff could put Councillor Moffat's back up on the screen for me, because I want to speak directly to it if I could.
You're talking about Councillor Moffat's motion?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you very much. So I am appearing today on behalf of the owner of 2394 Dwyer Hill Road. And if I can read just quickly from the staff report, it says, quote, "There was only one parcel of land, 2394 Dwyer Hill Road, see document 5, that was not reaffirmed by the study. Staff agree that this parcel should be returned to a general rural area designation." And so this property was redesignated from general rural area to agricultural resource area when council adopted official plan amendment 180 back in 2017. So for the last 3 years, our client has been waiting for a resolution of this situation. And I thank Councillor Moffat for his motion. My concern with the motion is that it defers a decision on this for yet another year or two or more, depending upon how long it takes for, firstly, council to adopt a new official plan, and secondly, for the Minister of Municipal Affairs to actually approve the new official plan. So it could be upwards to 5 or 6 years before I'll use this language, it's a little strong, but before the designation of this property is corrected. And I would ask the committee to consider amending Councillor Moffat's motion in the second last paragraph, where it currently reads, "There be resolved that ARAC recommend that council designate the land at 2394 Dwyer Hill Road as general rural in the new official plan, replace that with a direction to staff to bring forward an official plan amendment to redesignate the land at 2394 Dwyer Hill Road as general rural." I don't see the benefit to the city or to my client of delaying this decision to correct what was I characterized as a mistake in 2017, and would be very much appreciated if the committee could direct council or the staff simply to move forward with an official plan amendment to deal with this situation. That would be no different than the report that you dealt with earlier this morning on Snake Island Road, where staff were directed to bring forward an official plan amendment to deal with the situation in Councillor DeRue's ward. And I thank Councillor DeRue's for that. So without further to any questions, Chair El Shantiri, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chown, for your presentation. I see Councillor Moffat has a question for you. Anybody else, you can use the participant, raise your hand there. Go to Councillor Moffat.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Murray, for your appearance here today. It's always good to see. We spoke about this briefly, and I did speak to staff about the notion of an official plan amendment. Would obviously one of the differences about an official plan amendment versus wrapping it into the official plan review is the ability to appeal, but also the potential timelines. Now, would you and your client, or the landowner at 2394 Dwyer Hill Road, be comfortable with when this report comes back in Q4 of 2020, because we could potentially have more things that we want to address in an official plan amendment, to initiate the official plan amendment at that time to address both the 2394 Dwyer Hill Road amendment redesignation, and then any potential redesignations of land in the subject area to the further review. So it's a few more months, but we would initiate it at that time, and we would use all the lands. And if it happens to be that the third party review confirms everything on the east side of Munster, then at that time we'll just initiate the OPA for 2394.
So, Councillor, I appreciate that. And yes, we did talk briefly earlier this week. So if there's an opportunity in Q4 for this committee to, at that time, direct staff to bring forward an OPA rather than waiting until the new OPA, obviously for the sake of a few months, I think that would make sense. I don't want to make work for staff to have them processing an OPA for my client's property, and then 3 or 4 months later start processing another OPA for the lands east of Munster. So I can appreciate that it makes sense for us to wait for a few months for that to happen. But I certainly don't want this to get wrapped up in the new official plan. I worry about the Ministry of Municipal Affairs getting involved. I worry about the OMAFRA getting involved. Whereas if we simply do a city-initiated OPA, we can avoid all of that. And I don't anticipate a risk of appeal if we have a city-initiated official plan amendment later this year. So I'm content to wait, Councillor Moffat, and have this discussion again in Q4.
Thanks, Murray.
Anyone else have question? I don't see any hands on the screen. Thank you very much, But just question, Robin, when in the motion, when we ask for a third-party professional, how long that will take? Like, I mean, are we going to be able to find some independent out of the two people known to the city of Ottawa?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I hope you can hear me fine. There are very few individuals that specialize in soil analysis like this. The pool is really shallow. It's true, we've actually have 3 people involved in this ag plan, was Hodgin and Hoffman, 2 of the very notable people. And then, of course, the Colville report was done for the property on Dwyer Hill Road. There are very few. I've been able to contact a couple of folks who do also specialize or are recognized experts in this. And so we could go forward. I think one thing I wanted to remind you of that this is a LEAR. It's not just soil analysis. When we talk about land evaluation and area review, and in the case of the Dwyer Hill Road lands, we had, and in fact, the motion in 2016 really related to the land evaluation component not being correct. So I think when we come forward with a consultant, we'd be looking at the land evaluation component, the area review, which is another component of LEAR, is something that we had not contemplated redoing, and that's in fact the reason that staff decided that we would try to roll the Dwyer Hill property into the official plan review. The ag plan determined that there was a difference. There was rather an error in the Colville report that the soil evaluation was not evaluated property. He uses Canada Land Inventory instead of the Land Information Ontario database. But in the end, it was an area review component that decided us to take those lands out. So I just want to make sure that we understand that there's 2 really important components to this. If we're doing forward of the motion that's only related to land evaluation, that's what you're going to get.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robin. That's good clarification. I see Councillor DeRose raise his hand. Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a brief comment because earlier Murray was not available when Snake Island file came up. I just want to thank Murray for working with our Osgood Care Center for facilitating this official plan amendment. And I also want to thank Mr. Willis, of course, that him and his team, Adam Brown, and the planner, Jeff Osachuk, because they work very hard around it was very hard file, and I appreciate all the work that done behind the scene between staff and Mr. Shaw and of course our general manager of planning and agricultural affairs committee, because I know Scott has been supportive, and I'm sure yourself, Mr. Chair, and all the ARAC members. This is just a piece of land that, unfortunately, when they built Osgood Care Center,
Councillor Derouz, you don't have to go there. You just want to say thank you because we carried the item, so we're not going to talk about it anymore. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, folks. And our second presenter is Tony Ferranda. Mr. Ferranda, are you with us? I see him on the screen. Now he's gone off the screen. Tony Ferranda. So we'll go to the third.
He's there, Mr. Chair. He just has to unmute.
Can you unmute him, Mark, from you or Kelly?
What are you doing? Unmute. Hi there.
He is. Okay, here you are. Go ahead, Mr. Ferranda.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. So you have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Hi. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Ferranda, and I own property in the affected area. I firmly object to this proposed rezoning. In November of 2016, my neighbors and I received notice that the city was proposing to rezone our lands from general rural to agricultural resource area. We were firmly opposed. You guys still got me there? Okay, sorry. Yes. I'm new to this. I'm a dinosaur with this thing. We were opposed at the time because we knew our lands. Many people have been on it for generations. They're marginal farmland, not prime farmland, and we objected. We were told that agrologists would study our land to confirm if it were the soils were agriculture or not, and that was in December of 2016. I'd like to raise some very serious errors with this proposal. Number one, Mr. Hoffman, agrologist who took soil samples in November of 2017. Well, since his studies took place, the city has mapped a huge area of floodplain in the proposed resource area. That occurred in the spring of 2018 after he did his sampling. And I remember speaking to him about the floodplain, and he said it wasn't mapped as a floodplain. Lands that flood frequently are not prime agricultural land. And that has not been taken into account by his studies, nor were severances that took place in the area that would reduce the LIR scores for the affected properties. Mark, could you bring up that floodplain map?
Yeah, it's coming up now.
Oh, it's coming up. Okay, so there's the floodplain map. It's kind of hard. I don't know if you guys can see it. I don't see it very well, but if you keep, maybe zoom down.
Just reducing the size, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's at Fallow Field all the way to Bleaks Road. It's a very large area, that blue hatched area, okay? So my second point is map number 3, if you can bring that up, of the study area shows that the predominant soil class, can you zoom down to map 3? There it is right there, yeah. And you see the block over, the block of the smaller, the bigger block, I'm sorry. Map number 3 shows a predominant soil class as class number 4. That's the yellow colored lands. Class number 4 is not the lands they're trying to protect. It's classes 1, 2, and 3. And with so much class 4 land in the study area, why was not a single parcel removed? Overall, I'm not disagreeing. There's a few discrepancies with the Ag Plan report, but overall, I'm not disagreeing. I believe that it shows that the area is predominantly not prime farmland. And a lot of the land should be removed from that proposed rezoning. Third point, and I think it's a very important point, if you can bring up map 1B. That's map 1. Actually, okay, we stop on map 1 for a moment. You can see that yellow piece of land is proposed for rezoning. Well, that parcel was never even included in the boundaries of the map. If you can bring the next map up now, please. I call it map 1B. You can see right there, it was not included in the agricultural resource area map. So why is it included now? If you read the staff conclusions, the area is general. Basically recommends to designate all but the wooded area to agricultural resource area. That is fully wooded. It was not even included in the proposed area. So how could it possibly be included now? Number 4, my points, the city's LEAR system requires an agricultural resource area to be 250 hectares to be included as a resource area, and I find that very reasonable. It goes on to say that in the same manner, pockets of poor soil in the agricultural resource area should be 250 hectares to be excluded. That is, I'm sorry, completely unreasonable. I find that illogical. That being said, if you look at map number 3 later on, and you see how much yellow land, how much land that is not class 1, 2, and 3 is in that resource area, there is more than 250 hectares that could be excluded. Just scroll down one more, please. And I don't believe it was evaluated. Yeah, all that yellow land, all that land is class 4. It's not what they're trying to protect. They're trying to protect 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, that I would like to see that evaluated. And I thanks Scott for your third party. I think that's a good step. The city email, which I received on June 26th to inform me about this committee meeting, states that no appeals were filed in the Fallowfield Bleak study area. How could I or my neighbors file an appeal if we had absolutely no idea or completely unaware of what was going on? Since the motion in I believe it was December 13 of 2016 that was saying we'll study the lands, I didn't hear anything from Bruce Finley. Occasionally I would talk to Scott Moffat and nothing was really going on. It was in limbo. So we had absolutely no idea what was going on. We were not advised there was an appeal period. And how could we appeal something that we just received 2 weeks ago? How's that possible? How can we appeal? What are we going to appeal? Nothing has been brought up. So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Time, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ferrand. So let me see if any question for you from our colleagues. So there's no question for Mr. Ferranda. So, but if I go ahead, anybody have a question? Councilor Meehan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, Mr. Ferranda, does Councillor Moffat's motion to have a third-party reviewer, would you be happy with that in terms of the land that you're questioning right now?
Yeah, I think that's a very good step, but I also kind of want to be included in the process, right? Like before, they had someone come in and I heard nothing for was that 2.5 years? Like I reached out to Mr. Finley on I don't know, sometime in middle of January 2020, and it was like the cards were held close to his chest. We got a report, we're going to review it. Like that's not fair. I want to be included in this. Mm-hmm. If land was like, if you look at Richmond and you look at Winchester, and there's huge areas where they're farming with 250 horsepower, tractors. If it was that kind of land, I would not be disputing it. Like I would welcome anyone who wants to come down and tour those areas to look at that and see if it's farmland. There's pockets, little pieces here and there that might be good, but overall the area is not, and that's why I'm fighting it. And I want to be included. I want to talk to whoever's reviewing it and at least be included in this, not just sidelined and say, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry if I sound a little bit hyped up, but it's sorry. That's all I can say.
The forested area that's is in question. If that's, are you looking to clear that at some point? And
no, I'm not looking to clear it. It's not even my property. But it's a very good friend who's a neighbor of mine. Like it wasn't even included in their 2016 map, and how could it possibly be included now? It's forested, it's against the city's recommendations, and it shouldn't be there in the first place. There's things like that that really stick in my throat.
Okay, how do you suggest then the city keep you apprised of what's going on in terms of this land? We know that you're a stakeholder. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm asking staff, how come this gentleman was not told that this was coming up? Someone on staff answer that?
Yeah, Robin, go ahead.
Hi, through you, Mr. Chair, and to you, Councillor. The LEAR review had an extensive consultation as part of OPA 180. I can't be certain that every landowner received an individual letter. We've done that previously for other things like the aggregate review, but there was a significant amount of consultation that went along with that. Obviously, Mr. Ferranda hadn't received anything, and we apologize for that. I think that there was certainly a pretty significant public consultation process that went along with that. We'll tell you that we've been in contact with Mr. Ferranda a few times over the last couple of weeks, and we certainly would like to keep him and his neighbors involved through consultation if there is any additional work to be done.
Yeah, like I would like thanks, Robin. You're a great guy. We talked extensively, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Is it possible to you know, to put a notice in you know, various councillors' newsletters? Would that help? Would that have helped you, Mr. Ferranda?
Well, no, okay, so I did get a letter, or sorry, an email on, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. I think it was June 26th. So I did receive an email, but I went to speak to all my neighbors, and very few people got anything at all. So it's not just me, and like, I'm not just talking about this letter. This letter did not go, an email or a letter did not go to most of the people I talked to on Mansfield, because I went up and down the road and know all the people. I'm close to all of them. Yeah. No, most people didn't get anything. So that was an issue. And even, for instance, if you have somebody reviewing it, I would like to speak to him when he's reviewing my land and bring him, whoever the third party agrologist is, and bring him my points and show and point those to him. Because if they don't know that there's a floodplain, they don't know that there's severances, well, how can they possibly evaluate the property correctly? And that's what I'd like to do.
Well, I don't understand why, if you've been told about the LIR and you know that, why an email can't go out at least a month or two before a meeting like this to everybody. It's you can use the technology, I would think. We'll
I'm not
with that, okay?
I got the email, but most of the neighbors didn't. And from December of 2016 to 2 weeks ago, we heard nothing. Like, that's not fair. It's not right. Sorry.
No, I guess as councillors, can we discuss that, how that we could prevent this from happening in the future?
Okay. All right, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
We have Councillor Moffat now speaking.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have a question for Tony. Thanks, Tony, for being here. Obviously, you and me have discussed this quite a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. Just really on the process over the last several months, Bruce and I had discussed this back in the fall. I had raised my desire to hold off and bringing the report forward to committee until we could get together, discuss it further, and then actually have a meeting with residents that we would invite residents to. Ideally, I was looking at, you can amphib all this too if you want, but you can, I was looking at holding a meeting over at the Goulburn Town Hall, which is close to these residents. Of course, that bled into January, February, which then bled into COVID. So we missed our window. Bottom line is we missed our window. I would have preferred a much more direct conversation with all the landowners together before coming forward to this meeting. I did talk to Tony a while back about that. And I think Tony is a type of individual that can speak quite well for his neighbors as well. So I know that if I'm talking to Tony, I'm generally talking to more than just one person, because he embodies a lot of what his neighbors would feel. So obviously we come forward to this, and now we have the motion to provide some further review, which gives us some more time and also gives residents like Mr. Ferranda some time to review it himself with an agrologist. But yeah, it's less than ideal, the entire process, because of what COVID kind of jumped in on us at. Again, full intention was to have a public meeting with residents before it came to ERAC.
Yeah, Scott, I agree with that. Like what you said pretty much embodies it in a nutshell. Like there was, and I understand COVID-19 screws things up, unfortunately, but you know, like a public meeting and say, this is what this is what we think the next step is. We sit down, we talk about it. That's what I would have liked. I understand maybe it can't happen right now, but hopefully in the near future it can, you know? Because otherwise people feel like it was just like a process that just bypassed them. It just happens, and you follow. And you basically embodied what I said. Yes, I'd like to meet and sit down and talk and discuss it, and hopefully we can at a later date when the COVID-19 clears up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ferranda, and thank you, colleagues. And we go to a third speaker on the item, and that's Mr. Kavanagh, Michael Kavanagh. Mr. Kavanagh, I see you're in the meeting. Can you unmute your microphone? Kali, can you help me? Here he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so plain and simple, the property that I live on, west half, 15 concession 7, which used to be Goulburn. It's been in the family for probably since 1920, I believe. So it was my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, myself. we've all either farmed it, or in my case, I've hobby farmed it. I still retain 93 acres on that property. I can take you out and show you rock right on the surface, which is just good for pasture land. Maybe half of it would be marginal at best for growing hay, but the rest is just pasture. It's not prime agricultural land. It never has been, and it never will be. So I'm just basically saying that back when Goulburn was still an entity, went to many meetings for it and for its official plan. At one time, the back of the property, the back 50 acres, was zoned as mineral aggregate. And of course, we fought that to get it zoned as marginal. So I just would like to say that I would like it to stay as marginal land, because it won't get any better unless somebody can bring in lots of fill to top it off. So it will always be marginal land. Other than that, I was disappointed that I didn't hear anything from the city about this meeting as well. I know that some of my other neighbors probably, if it was been more time, could have made time to be part of this meeting as well. So I would like to say, if there's any way possible to defer this motion until the fall and let the all the residents know exactly what is going on, because as I said, I've lived in the area for quite some time. I know the land, and I know it's not prime agricultural land. So that's basically my 2 cents. I'd like to be involved going forward as well with anything that takes place for zoning on my land. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanagh. Any question for the presenter? I don't see any hand yet. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kavanagh. Your comment noted. So now we
Brad, do you want to just
go ahead.
I just want to confirm something with Mr. Kavanagh.
Mr. Kavanagh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Kavanagh, it's Scott Moffat. I just wanted to make sure. So when you're asking for deferral into the fall, just to be clear, the motion that I'm bringing forward and that's going to be voted on today does just that. It defers any sort of decision on your lands in that area of this report, and allows for third-party review of what we've already seen brought forward in the 2 previous studies on this in 2016 and then just recently.
Yeah, no, I heard you, Scott, there. I just wanted to make sure that from my perspective, everyone knew that, yes, I would be in agreement with a deferral. I would also like to know exactly where the individual did his soil testing, because like I said, 2 or 3 feet other than where he may have got his soil samples could have been entirely different. Like it's tough at best to dig post holes on my land. I can't get an auger in. I do it with a shovel and a pick, and then some of the rock at the front, I can chip away to get the depth, but there's no depth there for soil at all. So thank you very much, Scott, for getting this deferred if it is going down that road.
Did you have the agrologist on your land?
I had given them access. I don't know if they did actually go on the back of the property. I know, talking with a gentleman I know at ProMark, he had green lighted them to come onto the property because there was no services on the back of the property.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I know that when we did the 2016 report, there were some lands that were deemed marginal that we actually pulled out of the agricultural resource area along Mansfield Road. Backing onto Bleaks. Sorry, on Mansfield Road, but the lands at the back end, but backing onto Bleaks. That was a part of a different motion, and then this would just further review the other area. So yeah, we did make some changes back there in terms of flipping some lands from agricultural resource area to general rural to better recognize what they are. This review was just to sort of say this entire area is questionable as to whether it should be agricultural resource area. So that's what we hopefully can nail down a bit further.
Scott, it's Carol Ann. How wide an area do you want the independent agrologist to look at? And how many homeowners would be affected if by this?
If you look at the reports, in the report, there's an R6 map. It just says Schedule R6. There are 2 plots of land. One is east of the Village of Munster. One is west of the Village of Munster. It's the entire shaded area east of the Village of Munster on that R6 schedule. It's bounded by Munster Road, Conley Road, Bleaks Road and Fallowfield Road. It's a fairly significant piece of land, size of area. In terms of the actual property owners in that area, I'd hazard a guess there'd be 40 to 50.
Okay.
Rob
So
might have a better idea.
That answers my question. I think most of them would welcome this third party. So I will support your motion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kavanagh, one more time. And now we open question to our staff about Councillor Moffat's motion and about the item itself. So any question to our staff? Okay, I see none.
Do you want to wrap up just on that, just to explain a bit more?
Well, maybe you can wrap up now since we have no question to staff. Go ahead, Councillor Moffat.
Obviously I've said everything to the motion. I want to just make sure I'm distinguishing this properly from the discussion that we've had in recent months on protecting prime agricultural land, because this could be seen as looking against that. Now, these lands are at risk of nothing. These are lands that are nowhere near any urban boundary area. Reality is that if Munster were to ever expand, Munster is not expanding in this direction because it is capped in by mineral aggregate lands to the east of Munster. So Munster's not coming into these lands. This is not a situation of reviewing an agricultural resource area designation in order to permit development. We don't actually allow development. It might allow a couple properties to get a couple severances, but that's it. So this is really just about making sure that that our designations are accurate and that our designations are properly supported by ground truthing to say what lands really are. We can't properly protect prime agricultural lands if we aren't properly identifying prime agricultural lands, or if we're misidentifying marginal lands as prime agricultural lands. So that's been the entire intent of looking at this further, these particular pieces of land further in 2016 and into today. So that's what the intent of this is. I just want to make sure that I don't want to see anyone inadvertently assuming that we're conflating this with the bigger picture item, which is the protection of prime agricultural lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Moffat. And I hope my colleague will support your motion, because that motion gives us another fresh look with the third party, and it seems the resident and the presenter, they're in support of that step you're taking. So first we'll vote on the motion. On the motion, okay.
Carried.
Okay. Any dissent? No. All right. On the item itself, carry as amended.
Okay.
Okay.
Carried.
Thank you.
Carried.
Thank you very much, folks. And so before we go, there's no notice of motion for consideration. Inquiries, any inquiries from our colleague? None. Other business we dealt with. Our next meeting is Thursday, September 3rd. So I need a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councillor Moffat.
Yep.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a great summer, everyone. And thank you to our staff who help us today through the meeting.
I'll see you tomorrow, Planning Committee.
Yes, absolutely.